All right. So the biggest reason that I wanted to get together with everybody today is because I've gotten a lot of emails which told me that apparently I don't do a very good job telling folks how the virtual part of the summit works. So I thought I'd go ahead and do a video so I could just run it all through. And again, if you're in a noisy area, just go ahead and mute your line and I'll come to you later. So number one, I'd like to quickly walk through what's going on with the Painting Profit Summit. But number two, I love taking questions. I've conducted about 2,400 hour-long assessments for painting companies. I've worked with 450 different painters in 6 different countries. So I've seen a thing or two, and I really enjoy just people will have a problem. And I have a 1972 Chevy Blazer. It's a very, very simple truck. And if you were a mechanic and all you ever did was work on one type of truck, that's it. Same model, same make, 450 times. Like after a while, you'd be like, I know what's wrong with it. And it'd be like coming down the road because it's just the same thing over and over again. So I really like doing that. And I'll just tell you what you need to do and you can take the advice or you can do something different. It's up to you. And I'll do that at the end of this call, which will not take long. I'm only going to spend probably 7 to 10 minutes going through the rest of this. And so that it would probably be more entertaining. Fred Harris, there you are. I've not seen you in a long time, buddy. It's good to see you, buddy. So if you would show your screens, unless you're afraid. If you're afraid, if you're in the witness protection program, if you're being chased by the law, do not show your screens. But otherwise, show it. It's less weird. Man, Tom, you got a real nice office there. That is fantastic. I like that. That is fancy. That is real fancy. Tom works with and develops the programming over at Estimate Rocket. So the virtual summit. So number one, I think it's important that we talk about what the purpose of, hey, we got Ross Johnson here. We got Cheryl Waters. We got George. Welcome, George. Thomas with a Z and James refused to show themselves. And Craig Crow, it's Craig Cox is a notorious outlaw. He is wanted for bank robbing in at least 6 different states. This is complete conjecture, but that's what I think. At any rate, so what's the purpose of the Painting Profit Summit? Number one is painters work in a stunning amount of isolation. That is what I have found. If you ask most painters, like, do you ever talk to anybody about running your business? Do you ever get together with your peers? I mean, aside from just shooting the bull at the paint store while you're waiting? And the answer is usually no. And it's never about business. And if it is about business, it's like, how much would you charge to paint a stairwell? I mean, it's like nothing that really would help you in the long term. And there's nothing new under the sun in painting. I mean, nothing. I wish there was, because I learn a few things every year that are brand new, but for the most part, it's the same thing over and over again. And so one owner's strength is another's weakness. If you're in a room of, like, say, 15 or 20 painters, which is kind of how our hot seats work, and I'll talk about that in a moment, one person will be really good at hiring. Another person will be terrible at it. Same room. One person will be really good at marketing and sales. Another person will be terrible at it. Same room. And as you bring up your biggest challenges and your biggest breakthrough, one member or painter will say, hey, you're doing this all wrong. This is a big problem. This is a big issue. And another person will do the same thing. So it's like if you drew a Venn diagram in the room and you kind of pushed it together, somebody's got the answer to the problem and somebody else has got the problem. And the key is just to share the information. And if you are in a noisy area, or if you just think you might be, go ahead and mute your line, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback from myself here, and I'm sure some others might be as well. And if you want to ask questions, we're going to do this in a very, very formal way. You're going to wave at the screen and I'm going to call on you. Very technical, just like the classroom. So an owner might spend, for example, 5 years getting really good at painting and training under somebody else, or learning it on their own, and then employing people. And typically, if you employ a good painter or a good crew leader, they'll like help you get better at painting. And but we don't ever do it in business. I mean, never. Our industry association has like 1,100 members. There's like 400,000 painters. Like we just don't go and educate ourselves very much. That's just how it is in the painting industry. I can't figure it out, but that's how it is. So if you do something for a living, you need to really get good at it. And that's the whole point of the Painting Profit Summit. But more specifically, it's just to bring painters together because you don't get an opportunity to do that. And I frankly don't spend much time teaching at the Painting Profit Summit, except for the pre-day, which I'll talk about here in a moment, because y'all get to hear from me all the time. I like for you to hear from each other during that event. So first things first, Painting Profit Summit virtually. We start off with the operations pre-day, and you may look at that and go, wow, that's more expensive than actually attending the summit. And it's because you walk away with done for you franchise grade systems. And I would say, in my humble opinion, in some cases, better than franchises, because I've worked with every single painting franchise in existence. And I have helped a lot of them change on an individual and a national level. I know what needs to be done, and I've put those things together. We're going to be walking through job costing. I can't tell you how many folks, like right now, if I said, could you please email me how you did on your last 5 jobs? What was your gross profit? Did you estimate the correct labor hours? Did you estimate the correct amount of material? Can you send that to me? And most people are like, well, I think I'm making money. I'm kind of looking at my bank account. I've kind of looked at this. I've looked at that. And it's just not very good. And people, if you lose gross profits, if you're not making 50% gross profits, which means doubling your money, if it's a $10,000 job, you need to be making $500 or $5,000 in gross profit. It doesn't matter what else you do. If you start off losing at the project level, everything else is just downhill from there. So we're going to walk through job costing. We're going to go through project scheduling and operations management. A lot of you, every morning is a goat rope. Every day is a goat rope. Got to get somebody out here doing something, picking up paint, who's going where, what's happening. And it's just ugly, and it's stressful, and it's giving you ulcers. And so we're going to walk through the fact that most painting projects have a life cycle that's about 90% the same. And if we get that dialed in, you can reproduce it. It makes it easier for you. It makes it easier for the painters. And if you want to hire an operations manager, or even bring a painter in and turn him or her into an operations manager, you can do it pretty easily. The third thing we're going to look at is the ultimate crew leader packet. Many owners turn their painters into zombies. Brainless zombies, by constantly texting you and emailing you and calling you every 5 seconds about what needs to be done. And that's a bunch of BS, and it does not work. And so what we teach you to do is to empower your crew leaders. They should be able to come to the office, pick up an ultimate crew leader packet, pick up the materials that have been pre-ordered the day previous. That's where the project scheduling and operations management comes in. And then they should bring back to you a customer satisfaction form that says, these guys are awesome, and a check. And you should park your butt in the office. If you do not set up operations to where it can be ran from a desk, you've done it all wrong, and it doesn't scale. And if you hire someone else to try to do it, they're going to be stressed out and overwhelmed in no time, just like you. And they're probably only 70% as good as you at running around like a chicken with their head cut off. And so they're not even going to do that as well. So if you don't equip them and put a good system in place, it just turns into trouble. The fourth thing we're going to cover, and I mean, we're going to move fast, is the saved labor and material bonus program. And that is where we put incentives in place, especially for W-2 employees, so that you can control labor costs. The typical incentive structure for painting companies, let me move this puppy in here. The typical incentive structure for painting companies is this: you put them on a job. You don't tell them how many labor hours they have. You can't tell them how many labor hours there are because you don't use production rate estimating. And then you say, oh, it needs to be kind of done in about this amount of time. And if it's not done, maybe some angry words are said. Maybe you tell them you did a real bad job, but that's about it. And maybe at some distant point in the future, they get fired. That's it. That's like the entire incentive structure. And that does not work. And somebody's got a lot of noise on their end. I'm trying to figure out who it is. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody for now, just because I'm getting noise and I can't figure out. I think it's somebody that's called in on the phone instead of in. So I'm going to mute everybody, and then I'll come to you when you wave. And this is not going to take much longer. And then, so we had this save labor material bonus, material and labor bonus program where basically if you save, if you've got 100 hours and you save 10 hours, and if you charge $60 an hour for your painters, that means there's $600 left in labor. That means they get 300, you get 300, and it motivates them. In addition, if there's $1,000 of paint on the project, and if they use 800, there's $200 left over. You get 100, they get 100. I'm telling you, this creates a self-policing culture where your painters are remarkably attuned to budgets where they may have never been before. If there's no incentive, and it's not just money, because money alone does not motivate people. There's personal recognition, private recognition, or public recognition, in addition to, what are you eating there, Steve? It looks like lo mein noodles. I'm getting hungry just sitting here. We're going to go through that. I'm sorry, I'm a smart aleck. I make jokes a lot. I get distracted easily as well. And so, but we go through that because that's really the big thing, right? You want your customers to be happy. You want your projects to come in on budget, and you want certain processes to be followed, and you don't want your guys to lie, cheat, or steal. We don't overcomplicate a painting business. And then finally, the crew meeting blueprint. Most crew meetings, if they ever happen, are just chit-chatting about what's coming down the road. And that really does not work. You want your crew meetings to be focused on metrics. And if you use the things that we've just talked about, those metrics will guide you. So that's what the pre-day looks like. And if you get those 5 things in place, other than production rates, which Trent Husky is going to be talking about in day 1, there's not much else. I mean, there are a lot of other things. There's a lot of secondary and tertiary things you should bolt on. Radius marketing, gathering online reviews, upselling for crew leaders. There's a whole lot of other things that you could bolt on, but these are the primary ones. Okay, so these are the ones that are almost just got to be there. So general sessions. We start streaming live at 8 a.m. on Friday. I apologize to all of you that are on the West Coast. I can't help it. We're going to be live on Eastern time, so you have to get up early, or just, we're going to record all this, but you got to get up early. We're going to run that until 12-ish. We'll be taking questions from folks that are tuning in virtually just like this. John runs the panel here for Zoom, and then he says, I've got virtual questions, and we come to John and we answer those. We kick off that. I'm going to give some advice to painters that have lost their passion, and immediately as a little keynote for about 30 minutes. Like I said, I don't spend a whole lot of time talking. 8:30 to 9:45, Trent Husky is going to talk about understanding and utilizing production rates. I mean, he's good at it, and he has dialed this stuff in. He's given a lot of thought to it. He's iterated this several times. And it just makes it a lot easier to estimate projects, and it makes it a lot easier to get accurate and to train estimators. He's got an estimator that has no painting experience. And if you bring somebody on without any painting experience that has sales experience, you've got to have good production rates. Dan's going to talk about our power for positive change, making your world a better place. And he has grown from, 300,000 to 2.3 million in about 4 or 5 years. And that's a big jump. And he's going to talk about how he got there. Royce Palmer is going to talk about protecting your gross profits on every job. That's really important. Again, if gross profits are lost, you're up the creek. And then I'm going to do hot seat instructions, and I'm going to get back to that in a moment. And then we're going to hear from bookkeeping for painters. I'll explain what hot seats are in a second. Day 2, we start off with Jeremy Barton using automation to reduce overhead. Again, customer intake, running a project, closing out a project, like a lot of those things that happen are so repetitive, but instead of automating them in any way, we just manually do them from our head over and over and over again. It's about like going to the grocery store without a list. You're going to leave something out. It's going to be stressful. You're going to have to take trips back to the store. And people do that. Mario Meza, he's got a real interesting presentation topic. How I saved $230,000 in 1 year. I got an email from Mario. Said, I got a problem. I don't like getting emails where people say, I got a problem. But he said, I got a problem. I need to talk to you about it. And I got on the phone with him, and Mario goes, man, I got $230,000 sitting in this account. I don't know what to do with it. And I was like, well, let me talk to you about that. So we talked through him about, paying down some personal debt, doing some investment, looking for a shop, a few other things. And he went from really just, not doing very well to having this massive surplus because, again, and a lot of that went back to operations. This year's focus is operations. We take a break. We come back with the $1.5 million panel. Matt Rathgeb doesn't know that he's going to be on that yet, but he is. And Roger Carroll. Roger Carroll owns a $23 million painting business. I think they're around 23 or $25 million, little tiny outfit. And he's going to be on that panel. Matt Rathgeb, I think he's got like a $2.3 million business. And I'll pick a couple other guys. There's the big guys because everybody wants to be in the group with the big guys. And so they can't all be in the group with the big guys. So we put the panel together and we're just going to take questions from the audience and we're going to pose those to them. Ray and Tanya have really just jacked up their personal income in a very short period of time, despite having to run this year with fewer painters. And they're going to talk about how to increase your personal income, even in a labor shortage. And then I'm going to talk briefly about how we help people at the APPC. We're going to hear from Worcester Brush Company, and then we'll close it out. Now, if you sign up virtually, the next week on February 2nd through 4th, we're going to group everyone up together by their sales volume. So if it usually breaks out something like startup to $500,000, 500,000 to 900,000, and then it's usually like 900,000 and bigger. Sometimes it moves around depending on how many virtual people we have, and then I conduct those. So we'll get together just like this, but it'll be a group of probably fewer painters, about 10 painters a group typically. And what we do is you present like your number one thing that has helped you grow your business, and you share it with people. And if you can email me documents or one pagers or anything in advance that you think would be helpful, we'll get those virtual handouts to people. That usually takes about 5 minutes. And then the next 15 to 17 minutes, you go, here are my problems. Here are my problems. Can you help me? And then by the time you get through 10 people, it's funny because sometimes people, like, their first problem, whoever's first up, is like some kind of hiring question. And then maybe there's another one. And then by the time you run through that a couple of times, like, you've kind of got this idea of what the group thinks about that. And you've got some helpful information. And then sometimes you can move to your secondary issue because you've got your question answered by the person before, because the questions are often very common. And so we do that and we run through that. We make recordings of everything that has happened, and we send you the credentials for those after. So in closing, we've got the operations pre-day. We've got great opportunities there. We've got our general sessions where you'll hear from your own peers presenting things that really work for them. And then also you get to hear in a more consolidated group ways that you can improve your painting business and things that you can share to give value to the group. So that's all I got. That's my dog and pony show. That took probably 20 minutes. That's longer than I thought it would. But now we're just going to move into questions that you have about Summit, which probably won't be many. And then I'm just going to let y'all pepper me with business questions, and I'm going to answer them. I do it all day long, so it's no different to do it here. Robert says, it looks like I joined this call without reading what it's about. I'm so sorry, Robert.
Yeah, I know what it's about. I just wanted to join, but I don't think it was about this. I thought it was the monthly call.
No, sadly, you're mistaken. That will be next week. But I'm glad I got to see your smiling face. It makes me happy. Anybody have any questions about Summit before we just get into business improvement calls? And if you need to hop off, if you've got everything you need, that's great. I'll just hang on here with the people that have questions. Anybody have any questions about Summit at all? Just wave your hand at the computer screen. I'll come to you. If not, there you go. Craig. We'll go to Craig and then we'll go to Fred.
You're going to record it, right?
You are being recorded presently. Yes.
Right. But I mean, okay, the Summit.
I've actually got a little camera in that box right behind you. And you're a very messy eater. I'm just going to say that. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a CIA joke. So yes,
Brandon.
we're going to record everything and it will be posted in Customer Hub, and then you'll have access to Customer Hub. It'll be a little password and you can get in there and access it.
Okay, thank you.
So especially if you're on the West Coast, Craig, and you're like, I ain't getting up that early, we'll record it and you can just hop in there whenever you want to. So yes, we'll definitely be recording it. And it will be, not only will be recording it, it'll be professionally recorded. We have a guy come up. I think he's a little bit south of Florida, and we have somebody record it so you can watch it and see it. And the audio visual is usually pretty good. And Fred.
Actually, I think I have a similar question someone had in the chat, and that was the timelines of things. I seen it in passing a few times from emails, but what are the dates again for this?
The dates are, I should probably pull this up. I didn't write it down. Okay, let me tell you first. Okay, so it starts on Friday the 28th, Saturday the 29th. So the pre-day will be on Thursday the 27th. So the operation pre-day is Thursday the 27th, and again, that's optional. The general session 1 is Friday the 28th. General session 2 is Saturday the 29th. And then hot seats are February 2nd through the 4th, and they run from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern so that people can get their stuff done in the morning. I mean, if the event wasn't going live, we would start it later for everybody that could attend virtually, but because it's live, and the hot seats for people that are live actually happen in the afternoon after the general session. But since I'll be tied up in those, the next week I conduct the virtual ones myself.
Gotcha. All right.
Good questions. Any other questions about the program before we actually just move into a free-for-all Royal Rumble of questions here? George, and then I'll come to Cleve. You have to unmute yourself, George. You're on your phone. That is strange. Oh, it's going to ask me to send some kind of weird thing. Let me just find you here. George, where are you? George, all right. Let's see what I can do here. More. I have no idea what to do here. Pin? No, sorry. I have no idea. Usually people just can talk there, and I guess you just don't have you don't have one of those. So I'm sorry, bud. Can't help you. Can you type your question in? Very good. And then see if I can go here to the questions. I may come to Cleve and then come back. Okay. Let's see here. All right. What is the cost of the summit, please? Okay. Summit is virtual summit's $497. It should be on that page. If you go to Painters Academy, it's a little yellow button at the very top. All right. I'm going to come to Cleve because I saw him over here. And now I've messed up my view here somehow. Cleve, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, Brandon, I was wondering, can you run down the pre-day, what's on that schedule, just real quick, some bullet points, and what sort of resources are you making available for that?
Okay.
I know I read yet there's some resources.
Yes. So what we're going to go with, so we're starting out with job costing. Then we move into project scheduling and operations management. Then we get into the ultimate crew leader packet, save labor material bonus program, and the crew meeting blueprint. All of these are like standalone, what I refer to as modules. So typically in our program, they would have their own video. They have their own video and presentation, but I'm going to run through all of that in a 4-hour period. And so the video for that will be like recorded live, and it'll be posted in there, the PowerPoint presentations. But then, for example, the job costing Excel sheets, the operational reporting sheets, the time cards that the guys can use. When you get into project scheduling and operations management, it's all the checklists. It's the big scheduling sheet for all the jobs. It's the color request setup email, all the stuff that you would give to an administrative assistant or a operations manager to do all that. The ultimate crew leader packet's everything that you should really be giving to a crew leader to run a job properly. Time tracking, the meet the crew leader sheet, problem solving sheet, equipment checklist, the dual column closeout projects. So you don't have callbacks, the customer satisfaction Likert scale, the payment envelope, whole lot of other stuff. The save labor material bonus has all the sheets, has the sign up and the authorization form that you would use for people to come into the program, has all the calculations, and the crew meeting blueprint has the agenda, safety sheets. It's just everything. It's almost kind of like a little operations toolkit. And I put together all the components that, in my opinion, are like the primary thing. If somebody said, what are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you need to do to make sure your company runs well from an operations standpoint, I'd be like, these are them. And so this is where you start first. I mean, very often when people come into our program and their gross profits are awful, I start them out with 2 things: job costing and production rates. But Trent's going to be talking about production rates in day 2 or day 1 of the general session. So I did not include those here because I knew that he would be covering them himself. So that's all we got there.
Thanks.
All right, I'm back to the gallery view. Thank goodness. What is the time commitment for the hot seat? Somebody typed in. So the hot seat typically runs about 3 hours, usually, because I run efficiently. Like we'll go through 3 people. We'll take a 10-minute break so we can go to the bathroom. You can check your emails or do whatever. You play Angry Birds, water your plants, take the dog out, whatever it is that you got to do. And then we come back. But typically that takes about 3 hours. So once you get into your hot seat group on one of those days, it's about 3 hours, and you can't just pop in, get your questions asked or answered, and then abandon the group, because that's not fair. If you're going to get value, you need to give value. So that's how that works. I just saw that question pop up. Anybody else have any question about Summit before we just move into general business questions? All right. You're waving down in the bottom, and your name is connecting to audio. That is a very strange name. I'm just joking. So you may have to type your questions into the chat box. Let me see if there's one in here. You're just going to have to type yours in because yours still says connecting to audio. Anybody else have any questions? I think, Steve, did you wave, or are you just talking to somebody else? I think Steve was just talking to somebody else. Anybody else have any questions? Will any of the info at the summit be made accessible after the summit to members? Yes, we will be recording them, and it will all be in what we call the members only portal, but it'll just be for summit. And we're also going to bury a time capsule at your house, and we're going to put it on 8-track. So it's going to be really awesome. We're not going to do that. I made that part up. Other questions about summit? Oh, looking for more commercial repaints. Well, you should have come last year, because we did a pre-day on commercial repaint. So if you've got a time machine, go back to 2001 and go to Chattanooga, and I'll be there. Say hey to the Flash for me. For those of you that are comic book nerds, you'll get that joke. The rest of you will not. So anybody else have any questions? I can help you with stuff. Just Stephen, just send me an email separately. That'd be the best way to do that. And we can set up a time to chit chat about it. But we have an entire process for prospecting commercial repaints and maintenance accounts, but not new construction, which is the devil. We have an appointment for Monday. You are in the future. I knew you were already time traveling. So you've already got an appointment. We're in good shape then. Anybody else? Questions about Summit before we just go to general business questions, which I'm actually looking forward to more than rattling off this stuff. Anybody else? All right, we're going to go into questions. And so if you've got a question, anything that's going on in your painting business, you ask me and I will do my best to answer or solve your problem. All problems will be solved, and everything I say is guaranteed to be 100% right. And that's my promise to you. So we're going to go ahead and get into this. Who's got questions? Just wave at the screen and I'll come to you. Well, this is great. I'm going to go eat a peanut butter jelly sandwich and I'm going to be done. So nobody's asking any questions. Anybody got any questions? Who wants to be first? Just wave your hand at the screen. I do not answer questions about marital discord. I will answer questions about general health and fitness. but mainly we're here for painting and painting related items. Y'all are a slow bunch. Wave at the, there you go, James. Get in there. Thank God, the brave one. Let me see. Maybe I have to unmute you. Try to unmute yourself. I don't know how this is gonna. Let me minimize this chat stuff. I think, hey, James. Okay, go ahead, buddy. I can't hear you. If you're an air traffic controller, we'd all be dead. Wait a minute. Maybe my volume's not up. Maybe it's me. Hold on a second. No, you're cranked up, bud.
Hello.
There you go. You did something.
How you doing?
I'm awesome, buddy. Go ahead.
My question is as far as commercial buildings, I know that you can like with the way you bid them, is it like, would it be good to bid them like hourly, like do everything, go on the job and figure out your hours and figure it out, and figure out your materials. And then, because there is a lot of these buildings sitting out here, these commercial buildings sitting out here that needing painting. And to get them at a cheaper cost, my question is to you is that, would it be effective to do it by the hour, or just say, hey, I can do this job for $8,000?
Okay. So there's a couple of things here. There's two questions. We've got a marketing and a sales question, and then we've got a how do we price this question.
Exactly.
Okay. And then Trey Darius has got what types of presentation process should I have for commercial repaint, and how different is and I don't know what the rest of it says because I can't see it. So I'm going to assume that I know what these questions are, and I'm going to move with it. So number one, sales and marketing. Going after commercial repaints is like major account prospecting. And in that, you've got to find the decision maker. You've got to reach out to them with multi-step, multimedia marketing. That's email, mail, phone, in-person visits, networking with organizations like BOMA, assisted living organizations. There are also in many metropolitan areas, you have organizations that are like housing, what the heck am I thinking here? Homeowners associations, and getting in those and building your prospect list is number one, right? Because this is not sit on your butt, let a general contractor send you a bid so that you can lose it. And if you win it, you can lose your butt anyway, and there's no equity in it. And most of the time there's stuff going on with it, and it messes up your schedule, and it's slow pay, and new construction is the devil. You just want to stay away from it. So there's major account prospecting that has to happen, and it takes a while. And it takes a while to compile the list, because you can buy a list, you can compile it organically online, but at the end of the day, even if you buy a list, you have to refine it, and it's only right about 20% of the time. But once you get your list built, you've got something magical, because the typical painting contractor will not prospect. They will not call. They will not be persistent. They will not hang in there. So the world is your oyster when it comes to going after that, because you're like, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. You're the only person prospecting in your area. There might be two others if you're lucky. So the prospecting part has a very specific process. It starts out with a campaign, then we move into what we call the commercial prospecting points program. And then we also couple it in with our at-home monthly newsletter so that you can stay in touch with these people, right? Because you've got one-on-one communication, then you've got one-to-many communication, and those two things are different. Now, on the pricing, it is no different than the process you would use for pricing a residential home, in that you got to use production rates, right? You buy and sell labor for a living. You buy it wholesale, you sell it retail. So you got to know exactly how far an hour of a painter's labor goes, and you've got to know how far it goes on every surface. You got to know how many labor hours are in a job and how many labor hours are used, and you got to refine that. Most painting contractors never develop production rates. It drives me nuts. They just look at it and tilt their head and guess, and it's wrong. I mean, I've put painters in rooms, like very successful painters said, you guess the labor hours, you guess the labor hours, you guess the labor hours, 3 different guesses. has no relation to reality. And when you've got 50% gross profits that you're trying to hit, and if your estimates are off by 20%, well, 2/5 is almost half your profits evaporated because you're guessing. That doesn't work. Doesn't work. Guessing doesn't work. If you wanted to know how fast you ran a mile, would you go to a track and look at it? I wonder how fast that looks like a 14-minute mile right there, boy. You wouldn't do that. You'd run the thing, you'd set a timer, you'd run the damn thing, and then you look at your timer and you go, oh, whew, I'm out of shape. And then you might get faster, but that's what you do. And so if you want to know how long it takes to paint a commercial building, you might have to guess the first time, but buddy, you should never guess the second. And that's why we recommend that you keep a production rate diary for things that are odd, and that you develop your production rates now in the field for what we call your 80-20 items. And that's the 20% of items that you're painting 80% of the time. And you go and you measure, and that's, Tom's program uses production rates, and every good program does, every painting franchise in existence does, because it's the only way that works. So that's what you want to do. You don't price things by the square foot. You don't go guess the hours. You measure, and you do multiplication and division. And then when you run into something really weird, you might have to guess, but you should only guess it once. Guess it once. And then you got to do it differently from there on out. Is that helpful?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Very.
That's a very long answer to a short question, but there's lots of components.
Lots to it. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
Hope
so
that's
much.
helpful. I'll take the next one. Wave your hand. Oh, and going down to connect to audio, which your mother, very strange lady, connect to audio. And so what kind of presentation should you have going after commercial repaints? There is this weird thought that commercial repaints are completely different than residential repaints in the persuasion department, which is what sales is, but they're not. They're the same human. Where does that person go in that commercial building after 5 o'clock? Do they just go underneath their desk? Do they sleep? Are they an alien? They're a homeowner. They go home. The homeowner is the commercial client. The commercial client is the homeowner, unless they live in a box under a bridge somewhere. They are a homeowner. And so we start out in our process by doing what we call pre-positioning. We answer the phone very specifically. We do an intake process. We future pace the outcome of what's going to happen there. We send them pre-positioning information by mail and email that talks about how our painters, our processes, and product knowledge are superior to your typical painting contractor, because people are worried that you're going to steal things in their business. They're worried about sexual assault. They're worried about smells. They're worried about noises. They're worried about disruptions. They're worried about overspray. They're worried about a lot of things. They're worried about overspray. They're worried about projects being ruined. They're worried about clients and production being disrupted. And all those things have to be talked to them. You show up, you dress the part, photo identification, lanyard, diagnostic survey, do the estimate. If you can, present it on site, even if that means going out to your car and going back into the building. We have a big, huge leave behind book of social proof that talks about warranties, guarantees, background checks, and a whole host of other things, testimonials, before and afters. We come back in, we walk through our company story, and then we go from there, and we start asking questions and trying to close the sale. You never send things by an email. An emailed PDF with a price is the quickest way to lose a project. And then we have follow-up that follows the sales cycle. And we use mail, email, phone, text, drop bys in many cases. If you've got a massive project that you're trying to close, it is a major account sales. And not only that, with commercial repaints, you're not just trying to close that project there today. You're trying to close that future income stream, and it might be $50,000 to $150,000 a year. You get in with a hospital, a school, an assisted living facility, a warehouse and logistics company, you name it. I mean, these are big projects, and even if they're not big projects, they're big clients. And if you stitch together, 150 projects over 5 years, they might range from $1,500 to $150,000, but you can count on some kind of recurring revenue from those clients every year. So it's a big sales job, and you have to be persuasive. You can't just be focused on price. Next question. Just wave your hand at the screen. Go ahead, Cheryl.
So I actually have two questions. The first one, you've said a couple of times that new construction is the devil. So could you say a little bit more about, why it's hot and steamy? And see, I'm the jokester too. And then the second question is, out of the painting contractors that are out here, you know, in the US that you talk about, what percent would you say are really performing optimally?
So here are a few numbers. Well, now rephrase your commercial new construction question. I don't believe I absolutely understood that one. I understand the second one. Did you mute
You
yourself?
kept referencing it as the devil.
New
and I
commercial new
want-
construction. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Well, so
And-
here's why. So number
Yeah.
one, let's talk about the reasons you want to stay away from new construction. I'll be quick on this and then I'll move to the next one. Number one, you have zero equity. If you're in commercial new construction, you have zero equity. You don't have any relationship with that client. No relationship whatsoever. There's no client list. There's no recurring revenue. The contractor owns the relationship. When you go to sell your business, zero equity, zero recurring revenue. They can't refer you. So that income stream is a one and done. That's all it is. Okay. Number two, the contractor can pay you slow. They cannot pay you. The client can bankrupt. The developer can bankrupt, or the GC can bankrupt, all of which can leave you without getting paid on the project. Number two, it takes a remarkable amount of administrative overhead to even bid and complete a package for new construction. In many cases, there may be 20 or 30 painters bidding on a single project, reducing your chances of winning. And then finally, even if you win, you lose. I bet out of the 2,400 assessments I've done, I probably have talked to about 120 strictly commercial repaint clients over the last 7 years. And maybe 10% of those were as profitable as a well-functioning repaint business. Meaning you may be running $2 million, and instead of making the $600,000 with a 30% cash flow to owner that you should in a repaint business, these people are they're making like 200, 300,000, and they think they're doing well. And I'm like, you could be half as big or you could be a third as big, making the same amount of money in repaints. And there's equity, and there's continuity income, and there's referrals. The risk is lower. It's just for all those reasons. And finally, commercial new construction, I've noticed this pattern where it requires so much administrative overhead and project management that it distracts you from the ability to do anything else in your business. It's like a yapping dog or a whining child. It's like this all the time. It's just eating your lunch all the time. Oh, got a change order. Oh, we got to do this thing. Oh, you got to run over here. Oh, this other trade's just messed up all your work. Oh, the schedule's changed. Now we're back on. Now we're off. Now we're on. Now we're off. It's a very disruptive schedule. So for all those reasons and others, I would say to stay away from it. Now, with that having been said, about 3 days ago, I talked to a guy that does almost exclusively and only aerial lift work, high aerial lift work, super specialized guys making a ton of money. I've talked to a gentleman that got in with a GC contractor that only works with a very specific type of client that has very high margins, and they pay for quality. He's doing well, but they're like exceptions. They're not standards. Now, of the 2,400 surveys I've done, how many are doing well? Not many. The average painting business in the United States is 1.7 people. It's a dude and 2/3 of a helper. When you go outside and you look at the paint store, it's not like if you went to a place that plastic surgeons, attorneys, or lawyers went. There's no Mercedes out there. There's no Cadillacs. There's no Escalades. It's old beat up vans and trucks, and it's people who are barely getting by. And that's the truth. And it's not because the work's not out there, and it's not because you can't make high margins. It's messed up. And here's the thing that really drives me nuts. And then I'll move on to another question. There are 2,000 labor hours in a year. Everybody shake their head. You take 2 weeks off, there's 2,000 labor hours in a year. If you only charged $50 freaking an hour for your personal time and you painted, that's $100,000. But people are working all year making $50,000 with a helper. How do you do it? It's because they don't understand the mathematics of painting. They're afraid of math, and they know everything. is a big problem in our industry. They know so much, they can't make any money. And something's wrong. And so what I try to do is boil it all down to the basics. You're Trey Darius, connecting to audio. I've not seen your face before. Now I know who you are. That's good. For some reason, it only says connecting to audio, but then it shows up on the bottom here. And so that's what I try to do, is help just simplify a business. So to simplify it even further, if you're making 50% gross profits, and if it's just you and two buddies painting, you should be making 100 grand if you're doing 2,000 labor hours. You should be making $25 an hour off your buddy. Now, some of you are in markets where you can charge $65, $70. And almost all of you are in a market where you can charge 50. I've not seen a market that wouldn't sustain 50 yet. I've got people painting out our Indian reservations that are getting 50. I got people out in like Missouri where there's nothing but cornfields getting 50. If you make $25 off a buddy and $25 off another buddy, that's $50. That's $100. $100 times 2,000 hours is $200,000. Now you may have a little bit of overhead that might come out of that, but you should be making money off materials too. So let's say that $200,000, you doubled that to 400,000, because that's what, well, you'd actually, I'm doing bad math here. Hold on a minute. 50, 52, they're both 100. 100, that's that'd be $300,000. You should probably have about $30,000 in materials, and you should be making probably another $30,000, $20,000 off your material, and that'd probably cancel out your overheads. It should still be 200K. But that is not what I see. I see like 50, 60, 40, 30. I tell you what I also see. I see negative. I see $1.2 million in sales, and we lost money last year. And I'm like, I have no idea how that happens, but it happens. I got $2 million in debt, $500,000 in debt. I'm like, oh my God, this is a cash flow business. How did this happen? And it's just because people don't understand the business fundamentals. I hate to be doom and gloom, but that's what I've seen. If I saw something different, I would tell you, but I don't. But the positive side is there's no reason for that. And everybody at the summit, for the most part, is making money. So I know it can be done. Brian, I'll come to you, buddy. Unmute yourself. I'll do it for you.
Hey, there we go. I got
There
it.
you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Right on. So residential repaint guy, I keep scratching right at $1 million in sales a year. I've been at it for 20 years. We do make money. Otherwise I would have hung the hat up and done something long ago. I would like to become irrelevant in my business. I would like to have this thing run when I go on vacation. How do I do this? And before you answer that question, what do you think and I want to be lean and mean. We don't have a shop. We used to. I got rid of it. My overhead we're light. I'm nimble. We do charge. I'm in a great market. I really try to stick to $85 per man hour and that's fully loaded with materials. So
I would say first thing is don't conflate your materials with your labor. That costs you a bunch of money. I've seen people do that where they combine them both, because like, oh, it's about 10 to 20%, but that you want to separate your labor and materials, because what happens is like you're painting a house and it's like all trim work. It's 85. Well, there's no materials in it hardly, and you do great. Then you go paint a house that's all siding, and then it's $85. You don't do as well. So I'll just separate that, figure out what you want for your labor hour, figure out what the materials are, and then figure out what your markup for material is, figure out what your markup for labor is, but don't marry them, because you'll lose money. Every time I've had somebody separate those and so they can get data and look at it, the next year they've made a whole lot more money, because they're one has very little to do with the other. That's one thing that's just a tidbit for everybody here, because it's a rare thing. I see it happen occasionally, but it's a very odd way of pricing things.
It's interesting. For years I did separate, and I just realized that it constantly continues to end up being somewhere in that range in the winter, and then in the summer we're trying to be more like 95. So we can go deeper into that. A bigger question, higher level question though, is what do you feel like a company looks from an admin perspective, headcount, in other words, non-field producing, revenue generating people? Like, what's the headcount and overhead look like for a company that wants to go to, say, 1.5 million?
Okay, so And numbers fluctuate because you're getting $85 a man hour. If you took out materials, let's say it's 75 or 70 to 75 or whatever it
Yep.
happens to be.
Yes.
So the question I think is primarily like, if you want to get out of it, how do you make that happen? And then the other question is, what do you enjoy doing personally in your business if you still want to work in it? As you get to the point to where you can go on vacation for a couple of weeks and not feel like things can fall apart.
Think months.
3 months. I've seen it happen. We got a couple of members that are, just they vape now. They're not gone the whole 3 months. They're gone 3 months out of the year. They might not do it all at once. And if you did do it, you probably do it during the winter. That'd be ideal time. But so number one, these are the steps that I typically like to walk people through as they bring on overhead. And some overhead is income producing, or can be, and some overhead can save expenses, so that money that you're spending on that particular person may or may not be truly overhead. But we'll walk through this. So number one, answering service. I know this sounds crazy. I'm just talking about all forms of overhead related to a human. So number one is answering service. Answering service is a lot cheaper than getting somebody to sit and just answer the phone. So that's one of the first things I do. And even if you do have an administrative assistant, it still is better to have. Calls are abandoned at about 65 to 70%, cost the average owner about $480 every time the phone rings and it goes to voicemail. Got to get the phone answered nights, weekends, when you're on the toilet, eating lunch, you're talking to somebody else, get the phone answered. Second one is a bookkeeper. Okay. It is overhead. So you're asking about overhead. That's another thing you can outsource very cheap. We recommend bookkeeping for painters because they work in the industry. They can give you data that actually matters, and you can tell how you compare to some of the people in the industry. The third position that I like to see people bring on is an administrative assistant. Boy, they can help you with sales. They can help you with marketing. They can help you with freeing up your time. They can help you with operations. As long as something is systematized, simple, and recurring, then that works. Your next hire is where there's a fork in the road. And you got to decide, do you want an operations manager or do you want an estimator? One of the two. Now, if you're the salesy guy and you like to go sell and you do really well at it, you probably don't want to give that up. You probably want to pick up an operations manager. The issue with hiring an operations manager is that you've got what I call the donut. You got a lot of work in the morning. You got nothing to do in the middle of the day if you do it right. And then you got work at the end of the day, because you got to get them started. And then you got issues that you'll handle. Then you got like nothing to do in the middle of the day. Then at the end of the day, you've got to order the paint and adjust the schedule and schedule people to go to new jobs. So what you can do is give that operations manager additional duties. It could be running a referral route. It could be doing radius marketing. It could be helping with administrative tasks so that they're just not idle. But a good good operations manager, if you tie their compensation to gross profits, can really work with your guys to save labor, to save materials, and in many ways almost offset 30 to 50% of their salary. And if you put them on lead generation or upselling tasks, if they're inclined to do it and are good at it, not all of them will be, you can almost make that person revenue neutral. And then you got to decide, okay, am I going to stay in sales? And I'm just using the sales example here because most owners decide to stay in sales, not all. I didn't. Then you get into the point where, okay, am I going to get out of sales or not? And then when you get out of sales, at that point, you've got to ask yourself, okay, I got to do the division. How many leads is this person going to consume? What do I have to do to ramp up my marketing? One thing I do know is that you likely do not run a customer reactivation or a retention program, and you probably don't communicate with your past clients very much or very effectively. If you did, there's no way you could bid $1 million in sales after 20 years. You're losing as many clients as you're keeping every year.
I have recently started to follow up with clients, but every single time I start that process, we get overwhelmed and booked, and then it falls off.
Yeah, so that's a capacity issue. So, what is recruiting? Recruiting is nothing more than marketing and sales to the painting market. And every paint store that's out there has about 100 painters attached to it. And so if you got 2 or 3 paint stores in your area, you've got 200 or 300 or 400 painters, because they don't, paint is not a collector's item. It's not like a Beanie Baby. People don't go get paint and then put it in their basement and show them to their friends. They don't put them in curio cabinets. That crap gets put on a wall within 3 or 4 days. So when people say, oh, there's a painter shortage, yeah, but your job is just to get enough for your company. Your job is not to solve the industry's problems. Your job is to solve your company's problems. So if you have a hiring and recruiting problem that's a capacity issue that keeps you from talking to your clients, those are 2 things you're going to have to solve. Is both your client retention and reactivation problem and your capacity problem. If not, you're not going to be able to grow your company big enough for you to get away from it.
So are you suggesting that the place to find painters is actually at the paint store?
It's like, where would you find a bee? At the beehive? Probably.
Well, no, but I'm being serious. I mean,
Well, I mean,
so you're-
there's multiple ways that you can find painters, but you've got to find them where they are. And in this environment, which is an employee's environment, not an employer's environment, your job is to offer better employment and to give them reasons to separate themselves from their current employer, because you offer better employment. It is not to offer them employment. You don't, if they've got employment, they don't need employment. What they need is better employment. And what that requires is you interrupting them where they are in their process or in their career, and shake them enough to where maybe there is a better opportunity. And a lot of that is kneecap to kneecap. It's the same thing almost as commercial sales in a way, because every painter is worth about 120, or in your case, about $160,000 in revenue. And it's so funny. An owner will bend over backwards to close a job. And then when it gets to recruitment, we want the painters to crawl on broken glass to us and go through a bunch of hoops, and we won't go meet them, and we won't talk to them, and we don't give a crap about them. And then they're like, oh, I can't find anybody. I'm like, well, that's your own fault.
It's not that I don't give a crap, but I would definitely put myself in the bend over backwards to make a sale. And that's definitely what I'm excited about. And production capacity is definitely our limiting factor. That's what's holding me back, 100%.
Yep. So you just got to solve them. You got problems to solve it. Those are just business system problems. That's all it is. It's the same. Everybody's got the same problems.
So Brandon always speaks of, finding painters at the store, even out when they're at like a hardware stores. I just recently found a good team of 3 at a job that wasn't mine. I came up to the guys and now they're doing great work for it's been a week, and it's great. They're going much faster than my guys and much better than my guys. So yeah, whenever, to you, Brian, as wherever you can find painters. But Brandon's trying to say that's the easiest place to find painters at the paint store.
It's like hitting on a lady in the supermarket.
Done
Exactly
that.
what it's like. You're talking to me. I'll give you a little script here, and then we're going to move on to somebody else. Although this is relevant to everyone. I'll walk up to a painter and I say this, you can write this down as quick as you want to. I go, hey, I said, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm doing great. I said, how do you like owning your own painting business? Why would you ask that question, Brian?
Why would I ask that question?
Yeah, if you were going to ask a painter, how do you like owning your own painting business? Why would
Well,
you
you're
ask?
going to shock him into he's going to be like, well, I don't own a painting business. You're going to find out.
There you go.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so why do you own your painting? I don't own it. I said, Earl, I work for Earl. Was Earl around? I hear good things about Earl. No, Earl's not here. That's the best thing you can ever hear. He's not here. Well, how do you like it over there? And it doesn't even matter what they say, because some people have good jobs and they complain. Some people have bad jobs and they got a good disposition. Doesn't matter. And I always say, well, listen, I know you're busy here today, but I'd really like to talk to you about your painting career. My name's Brandon Lewis. I own XYZ Painting, and we pay our guys the best. We have the most organized process. We've got room for upwards advancement. And I know you're happy where you are, but I would like to be your second choice. Can I get your phone number? And I get their phone number, and I'll wear them out. I'll show up at Burger King where they are. I'll come over there. Where are you working today? I'll come over there and say, can I take you out to lunch? Can I see you? Can I whatever? Because they're worth so much money. And then they'll go, oh, I don't want to leave. I'm like, I'm not trying to hire you here, bud. That's fine. I just appreciate I'd spend some time with you here today, and I'll leave. And then about a week later, I'll call them and say, man, I can't stop thinking about you and the other 15 guys I just sat down and called. Can we get together again? And I tell you what, that second visit, about 50% of them fall. But you've got to get off your ass and you've got to engage people. And you can't, if you don't need them right then, doesn't mean you don't stay in touch with them. I get on my phone, I get in front of my spreadsheet and I text, how's Susie doing at soccer? Question mark. How you doing? What are you working on today? What's going on? I'm like your wife's ex-boyfriend that won't leave her alone. I'm just like, and eventually like one day they get mad at who they're working for because they're disorganized, because they don't have their crap together, because they're not paying them right, because whatever happens. And then they're like, I'd like to talk to you. I'm like, I know you would. It's just a law of averages. And you work that list just like you'd work a commercial prospect list. And as long as you're better than the other painters, you will have all the painters you need. But then you have to be a good boss. You have to have all those things, the save labor bonus program. You've got to have room for advancement. And then you got to create this environment where, with me, it was always the stern and loving parent. You knew what I was going to expect. If your son got in jail, I'd bail him out. If you needed some money, I'd help you out, whatever. As long as the jobs came in on budget and the customers were happy, it'd be like working for yourself without the stress, because I don't micromanage. So you can solve those problems. They've been solved. We got tons of people that solve them, but most people don't really want to solve them.
Quick question.
Well, I'm going to have to go to somebody else, Brian.
Summit question though, just about dates.
Yes.
I'm very interested. During hot seat though, unfortunately, will not be in town. Is there another date I should look at, or should I try to figure out how to make it work?
See if you can figure out how to make it work. If it doesn't work, I mean, hell, I'll just get on the phone and help you myself. That's just good.
All right, gentlemen, I got about 5 more minutes and I'm out. But
All right, if anybody has to leave, you can leave. I'm not going to take names and numbers and be all mad here. Y'all go. Y'all are grown people.
By the way, I've emailed you and I'm waiting to hear back.
Oh, just now?
No, over the last couple of days. It's from some of your auto response stuff.
Okay, I'm working my way through a bunch of emails right now. It's not Domino's Pizza, and I'm not 30 minutes less. I'm real slow about some of that stuff. I do get back to people. Sometimes I'm slow about it.
It's all good.
Awesome. Other questions, guys? Just wave at the screen. I'll try to answer them. You may not like my answers, but I'll tell you what I know. Wave at the screen. I'll help you. James, you've already gone. I'm going to go to Alicia, then I'll come back to you.
Hey, how's it going?
It's great. Glad you're here. You're finally somebody making this place look good. I tell you what, it's terrible. It's terrible around here.
Okay, so brand new to this whole program, so just barely started, but I know about the regular meetings with all the crews. So this is our dilemma, and we haven't been able to figure out how to make it work. So we live on the border of Idaho and Wyoming, and we have a gigantic mountain pass that we have to travel to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So it's 45 minutes. We have half our crews that live in Jackson, half our crews that live in Victor, Idaho. And then we work in Jackson and Victor, and then all the way on the other side of a pass in Star Valley, which is like an hour and a half from Victor, or either way. So you have this like big triangle. And if we make them drive over an hour to do a meeting in Victor, then they have to drive an hour back or wherever. We're trying to figure out how we're supposed to do that. Do we just bite it and pay for their travel time to travel 2 hours to come to a meeting?
So you're not the first person that's had this awful problem. And some people have this awful problem and they're in a metro area and they're only 30 minutes away from each other normally, but it's like an hour and a half to get there and back with traffic. So sometimes it can be a mountain pass and sometimes it can just be an interstate. So in those cases, it costs you more to do crew meetings, but I'm telling you, crew meetings are efficient and they're effective because you're talking to everyone. And additionally, there are things that are, I'm going to hit the mute all button because I think somebody's got something going on, and I'll unmute you. Why don't you unmute yourself? Because I'm afraid I'm going to mess something up. There you go.
I just want to, I have a fish tank in the background. I just don't want it to be noisy.
I can't hear the fish, and
Okay.
I can't even speak fish. So if I did hear them, I wouldn't even know what they were saying. And so we have a lot of people that have this problem. So, but in corporately, things happen that never happen on Zoom. They never happen outside of a group. It's the reason that churches and civic organizations and every humans are social. And you can't get public recognition privately. It doesn't exist. There's this thing that happens when humans come together that can't happen any other way. It can't be reproduced. That's why I do Summit in person. That's why we're the only person to do an event last year live in our industry, even though half the people died, God rest their soul, and their grandmothers. It was very sad. And so we all got together. Matt's got the slow smile down there. Anyway, we all got together, and because it's important. So I would recommend either picking a central location, even if it's not your office. A lot of times your paint store will allow you to do this. There's a lot of people that you just meet in the back of the room. Another thing you could do is move from area to area. If it is that disruptive to your people, you could do it bi-weekly instead of weekly. I probably wouldn't do it any less than that. You could perhaps do Zoom in between. So we do Zoom on the first Thursday or whenever you decide to do it of the month. We get in person on the second Thursday. We do Zoom on the third Thursday. On the fourth Thursday, we do Zoom again. And then if there's a fifth Thursday, we don't meet. I mean, you can get in a cadence, but I do believe that even if you do have to spend money on labor to get people to the meeting, it's well worth it. Especially if you start administering programs, like if you've got programs to administer where you recognize people for saving labor and materials and customer satisfaction, and when you feed everybody and there's camaraderie, there's real value there, as long as the agenda is put together well and as long as it's focused on measurable outcomes. And that can also be safety. It can be team building. Now, if it's just a bullshit session, and why pay the money? But if it's an agenda-driven meeting that's going to move metrics, it's worth spending the money, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Miss Alicia. It's pronounced Alicia?
Alicia.
I messed it up. Alicia. Thank you.
It's all good. Yep.
All right. Other questions before we wrap it up here? It's almost 4:20. I know you painters. You got to be careful here. What's going on? Other questions? Anybody else? Just wave. Craig, and then I'll come to James. I think I lied to James. James isn't paying attention anyway. He's playing Angry Birds. I can tell. Go ahead, Craig.
All right, you have a couple more programs beyond the summit. Can you touch on those a little bit?
I mean, we have just a larger membership program. The summit is just like when we get together once a year. Everything else, I don't want to waste everybody's time, but we just basically what we do is we have a series of business systems that I help implement into people's businesses depending on what they need. Some of it is prescriptive, meaning that every member goes through it. Our core 5, for example, then people graduate into the mastery calendar. For example, this month's module is how to hire an administrative assistant, and we've got all the screening questions, for the non-technical interview, we've got the technical assessment, we've got job postings, we've got, hey, here are all the tasks they can do. Here's an example of a calendar. Like, how do you, because a lot of people, they need help in their business, but they bring a lady in. Typically it's about 80-90% of the time, lady, occasionally it's a man, and they bring somebody in and they don't know what to do with them. And then they're here she is. I don't know what to tell her to do. Or worse yet, they just dump a bunch of work in their lap. And then when it doesn't turn out well, I mean, if you can't do that with a painter either. And so we teach people how to bring on key hires. We teach people how to stay in touch with their customers. We have a power paint presentation process. We have all the operations stuff, different recruiting and hiring tools in our quick start recruitment and hiring program, recruiting Latino painters in the Spanish speaking community, going after commercial repaints, just basically anywhere there is a problem or an opportunity, I have kitted up some sort of little business solution that just tells people how to do it. But what we don't do is I don't talk at all about how to paint stuff. Everybody knows how to paint stuff. And there's no shortage of that information out there, but there is a shortage of business improvement information, and specifically business improvement information that starts with the most important things and works their way backwards. A lot of people get hung up on tertiary things that really don't make a difference. And so we try to focus on the main things first. And if you ever get to the secondary things or the tertiary things, great. But if you don't, you'll still make a bunch of money just covering the basics. So if you email me, if you ever want to set up a time to talk, I can get into more detail there, but I don't want to do a sales pitch here or anything. I just want to answer questions today. Other questions? Can it come to you, James? Lay it on me quickly. Here we go. One more time, James. There you go. There you are. Go ahead. No, sorry. You're still not, whatever you did last time, do that again. You may just have to type yours into the question. Ross just joined us. Ross, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, bud.
Can you
I'll
hear
come
me?
back to you, James, once you figure out how to do your audio.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm 73. I've done 3,500 projects myself in my painting career. And I'm still strong and need to still make money. And I'm wanting to find out how to better generate leads for commercial work. Do you have any details of how to actually work into?
Were you here during the first part of the call?
I was, and I heard what you said about that. And I'm just wondering if there's, like computer programs, computer advertising, things that, would bring automatic generated leads.
Yeah, I'm looking for a computer program that'll actually put money in my mailbox so I don't have to work, Ross. So once you find yours, I'll quit looking for mine. So though everybody wants some bullshit like that. Excuse my language. My wife has told me my language is degraded here recently. She's gotten on to me about it. I need to get better at that. Sorry. And so yeah, it's just kneecap to kneecap. Now, can you do inbound organic lead generation for commercial painting? Absolutely. You can set up really good, strong websites. But the thing about commercial repaints is twofold. Number one, the lead volume is low.
Right.
Because the search volume is low. People don't search for it very often. But when you get a lead, it's a good lead, but there just aren't as many of them to get. So you can do that. And we help people do that. We build websites here. We've helped some people in some very competitive metro markets start generating leads in commercial. If you're not in a competitive metro market, it's a little bit easier to get there quicker. If you're not, it takes longer to get there. It takes more money, takes more time, takes more patience, takes more content, but you can get there. But the swap a credit card, get a bunch of commercial leads without working at it, I've not found it yet.
Doesn't work. Okay. So it's
right beside the Fountain of Youth, I think. I think
so
Cortez is still looking for it somewhere down in the rainforest.
Okay. So is there one other question? Is there as far as bookkeeping, what should we be looking for? We're looking at changing bookkeepers. We're not really happy with what was going.
I would recommend bookkeeping for painters.
Okay, so that's a business.
That is a business. Bookkeeping for painters. You can tell them Brandon Lewis sent you. The thing about bookkeepers is this. Somebody sent me the other day, their QuickBooks is terrible. They send me some profit and loss statement, which is just garbage. You can't tell crap from looking at a profit and loss statement in QuickBooks because it's not set up to where you can get any information that would help you make business decisions. It's more for the tax man and for compliance. If you really want to collect information that's helpful to you, you need somebody that can isolate that information and do it. Now, in our program, we have, really, honestly, if you do job costing per job and you do weekly, and if you do monthly summaries, that's 80% of the battle. And then I have a thing that I like called a cash flow projection sheet. And on the top are all your painters and what you charge and how many hours you work and what percentage of the time you have that you come on budget and what your overhead is. And then that tells you what your gross profits are going to be generated, whether you use subcontractors or W-2. And then from there, you subtract all your administrative overhead. And then what's left over is yours to keep. The painting business is very simple. It's just a cash flow business. People really overcomplicate their bookkeeping. mean, you don't really even, I mean, I don't want to say you don't have to do bookkeeping, you do, but I'm saying it could be a lot simpler. If you make money on every job, and if you know how many painters you have, and if you work X number of hours, and if you make $25 a painter, and if they work 100 hours, that's $2,500. That's $2,500. If you do that for 4 weeks, that's $10,000. And if you've got $3,000 overhead, then you get to keep $7,000, and then it goes into the bank account. It's that simple. And so I recommend that people first simplify their painting business and make sure they really understand it before they just go out and start looking for services and other things. Because sometimes it's just simpler than what people make it.
Where do I find the bookkeeping for painters?
I would go to the inner tube and I would type in bookkeeping for painters.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And they will pop up, and you'll talk to Morgan, Ray, or if you email me, I could actually just put you directly in touch with the person you need to talk with.
All right. Thank you very much.
Tradarius asks, is there a certain software you can use to load in your production rates after you narrow ... Estimate Rocket, Tom's on here. Some people do it in Excel. Some people use other programs. I mean, it's multiplication, division, and addition. It's all pretty simple, but there are a lot of other programs out there that allow you to do more than that. Keep up with your clients, manage some of your production, send out some automated emails, put it together in a presentation that is more persuasive and more professional, allow you to know if you've emailed one after you've presented it on site and printed it, which I do recommend that you do. That you can know if they've opened it or looked at it again, or if they have interest. There's all kinds of things that you can do. But Tradarius, you've actually got audio now. Say something. Say something. No, sorry, no audio. Thought you had it, don't have it. So I hope that helps. I just saw that pop up on the bottom. Any other questions before we wrap up? Well, guys, go ahead, James. Sorry, James. Today's not your day, bud. Today's not your day. You're mute. Next thing you know, you're going to have to get a job as a mime. Do you know sign language? It wouldn't help you because I don't. Sorry. All right. Okay. We got one more from Alicia, and then I'm gonna wrap it up here. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is about hiring, and I know we talked to Brian or something about hiring more painters. So we're in a position, I guess I want to know if there's any other businesses out there that have like super peak season. And then like we had 27 guys for the summer and fall, but then we dropped down to 4 or 5 in the winter. And so we get visa workers from Mexico, but that's a crapshoot every stinking year. And we just found out that we more than likely won't get them. And if we do, it might be the end of June.
I think they're all here in Tennessee. So I'm sorry, they got stuck here. They left the warm climate and they just didn't make it all the way up to you.
Man.
Sorry.
So my question is, since like we're so dependent on visas, if we don't get them, we're trying to figure out what do we do next? Because it's like hiring a bunch of people is hard when you don't have enough work for the entire winter to keep them full time.
So this is an age-old problem, and it stinks for people that are in Canada and in the northern United States. It every year you have to deal with this. So, obviously the same methods that you've used before to mitigate some of this, you call people back up, you keep your best guys, so on and so forth. Commercial repaints can help depending on what you got there. If you really start working that market, it tends to be more responsive. People do spend money in and around the fiscal year, beginning and end as budgets are released. That can offer you some relief in a cold climate. I know a lot of folks that work in ski lodges and property management, manufacturing during the winter and exceptionally cold climates. Second thing that can really help you a lot, again, is customer reactivation. Wake up, Craig. Come on now. Customer reactivation and retention. Because a lot of people don't reach out to their clients very often. And if you run a campaign in late fall heading into the winter, a lot of people are just leaving money on the table in their lists. And even though the organic demand is diminished, you can still get all of it. And I've seen people add $100,000, $200,000 just by really doing a multi-step, multi-marketing campaign to their list. That's another way you can help so that you can get some demand up. The other way that I think works pretty darn well for a lot of our guys is they start combining W-2s with subcontractors, especially on exteriors where you have the least amount of problems and the least amount of scrutiny. And if you can find 6, 7, 10 painters on 3 or 4 different sub crews who can come in every summer and handle the exterior overflow, it takes a while to bring them on, then you're not on the hook for them all winter and they're doing their other types of side work. That's another way to mitigate it, but it does stink when you're in a cold climate. It is, and you're in the painting business. It is one of the things that makes the industry very unattractive.
Yeah.
Truly, because it's not consistent during the winter.
Right.
So subs, ramp up recruitment. You got your visa thing you're going to try to work, see what you get. Then you've got, customer reactivation, going after commercial prospects. But at the end of the day, you can make winter less impactful on your business in a negative way, but you can't turn winter into summer, and you can't spend your way out of it either. I've watched people just waste gobs of money doing that too. So it's a tough problem.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna try you one more time, James. Go ahead.
I got it this time, I think.
There you
got
go.
it. I'm sorry. My question is to you is work subcontractors working for general contractors. What is, I mean, do you have any like bad things towards it or any good things towards it?
I don't understand the question. Say it one more time in a different way.
Like say I'm a subcontractor working through a general contractor that's bigger
Okay.
than me, and he's generating jobs for me, and I'm going out and doing the jobs. And I was just trying to get some of your ideas on, is it something good to do, or?
It is, as I've previously stated, it is awful, in my opinion, for all the reasons that I've talked about before. No equity, no recurring revenue, high risk, lots of administrative issues, a risk of non-payment, bankruptcy, liens, holdouts, or whatever you call retainers, interrupted schedule, ogling blueprints ad nauseum, which they spend all of 10 cents when they put together blueprints about painting. It's like buried underneath some kind of little footnote somewhere, and nobody gives a rip about painting in the budget because it's so small that if they screw that up, they're not going to. They screw the foundation up, they screw up the mechanical, they screw up the roofing system, they screw up the framing, buddy, they're going to be cost a lot of money. But if they screw up the painting, the only person that pays for that is the painter. And so it's not that big of a deal. And so it is, new construction for the painter is like just terrible. I would recommend going after repaints and building your business exclusively there.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign off here before somebody asks me a question I don't know the answer to. And I've made it successfully navigated through here so far. So I'm going to hop off here, guys. I hope y'all are having a happy new year. If I can ever help you, email me, Brandon@paintersacademy.com. I hope to see you at the Painting Profit Summit virtually or in person, preferably in person, but hopefully virtually. If you can't make it there because of travel or other issues, appreciate all of you. And I'll talk to you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
See
you.
you guys.